Hey everyone, I am back to read the next chapter. We're on page 20 at Poinsettia Doll. And before we start, make sure you go to my YouTube page or YouTube, whatever channel, and subscribe so you can hear the ending where it's not the book, but all my comments and that sort of thing. It might be kind of interesting. So anyway, make sure you do that. And we're going to start on page 20 so you can either read along or just listen to me. Pushpa, you are Indian and fit. You should teach yoga. You would have such a great following just because you are Indian. Oh yes, I can be the next yoga guru. These things have been told to me since yoga started becoming more popular here in the South. Today, I step into this yoga studio and meet Kelly. I am immediately challenged. That first time I tried Baptiste-style yoga, which is really just hot yoga for Americans who have that need to pump up their bodies, I only did it to get me out of my rut, to break some boredom and challenge myself with something new. I had tried Bikram yoga. It is another very hot yoga that holds 26 postures with very little movement and is a good workout, but I found myself getting bored with it quickly. And it is predictable and monotonous after a while. That southern spring day when I began the yoga journey, I cannonballed out of my comfort zone as I stepped into the studio and got checked in. The teacher, Kelly, took me upstairs and showed me the studio, the high ceilings and tall windows overlooking the tops of palm trees, with a backdrop of blue sky and white clouds made me feel at ease. The echoing New Age music, familiar from my massage therapy days, also brought a sense of comfort. The women and a couple of guys were lying down on their mats, relaxing to the music. I am thinking about teaching yoga. Everyone thinks I should because I am Indian, I say with pride to Kelly. With her sharp country accent, Kelly quickly snaps back. A person doesn't have to be from India to teach yoga. Anyone can do it. Surprised at her response, I gulp down my large ego and say, "Oh, yeah, you're right." I wandered off to adjust my mat. On the outside, I stay composed. The inside, however, is a different story. How does this white, blonde woman with a twangy southern accent think she can say that to me? After all, she is teaching something that came from the country in which I was born. How can she even think she can be a good yoga instructor when she doesn't have an ounce of Indian blood in her? I'm a little put off by her indignation, but I go ahead and do the class. According to Mama D, Southerners were lower than everyone else, the bottom feeders of our class system. Indians, however, were the most intelligent race with more class and culture than anyone else, Mama D would exclaim. They must be poor and uneducated. Just listen to that god-awful accent those people have, as my father would quickly pass through the channel playing hee-haw. You can't even understand that they are speaking in English, Mama D loathed everything that the Deep South seemed to stand for. That twangy country music, the uneducated sounding vocabulary, the ridiculous bigots they all are, and the trashy women. Because Mama D was an educated, fair person who believed in people and equal rights for the Negroes, I grew to believe this was all true, that she would never say something against anyone unless it were the truth. The people of Hee-Haw did seem a bit like country bumpkins, and I thought maybe she did have a valid point. Mama D didn't even like describing people as black, and she loathed the N-word. She talked of her father and how he hired such nice Negroes to work for him on his hop ranch and never called them the N-word. There were only a smattering of other races in my schools, a Chinese or two, a Mexican or two, one or two American Indians, a couple of black people, and maybe a couple of us East Indians in a high school of hundreds of kids. Racism didn't show itself, for there were not many to be racist against. After the first class, I am hooked on this type of hot yoga, but I keep battling a gnawing little judgmental voice. Why have you been learning yoga from white men, a man from Dominican Republic, and now in a studio in redneck Jacksonville with a Southern woman? none of whom have spent their lives being yogis in the Himalayas. A piece of me questions, who are these people and what am I doing learning something that should come naturally to me? I am Indian. I have been to India. I have family in India. Why am I learning something so ancient, so indigenous to my homeland from people who have never even been to India or studied in India? Shouldn't I be finding my yoga master in a Himalayan village in northern India? Better yet, aren't they supposed to just appear when I am ready? That is what all the spiritual books say. When the student is ready, the master appears. Even on my trips to India, I had hoped for the master to appear, like the magical stories I had read, but nothing ever happened. I never fell onto my guru who was waiting for me to be ready and knew that I would one day arrive. I conclude that I am not worthy of a master yet. I am not ready for them. Yeah, it was kind of funny because even before I ever took yoga, people would always ask me, if I was going to teach yoga. And I thought, why are they asking me this? Like, why, what is it about me that means I would teach I would be teaching yoga? And I kind of came to the conclusion that at that time in our society, when yoga was, there were so many weird things people were saying about yoga and that it was religious and all this kind of stuff. I think people just assumed because I was Indian that I must know yoga. And that was kind of the irony about my life. It was always, people assumed a lot of things about me just because of where I was from. They assumed I, of course, was going to be a doctor. And they assumed, some people assumed I was supposed to be a yoga teacher. And it's just funny how people compartmentalize you based on your race, and just not necessarily the culture you grew up in or who you really are, but more just based on my race and what I look like. So it was just, I had a lot of stuff going on when I went in there because, in a way I was sort of pumped up thinking, oh yeah, I can teach this. I'm Indian, so it should just be inherent in me to be able to do this because that's what everybody else thought. So I was a little put off, but then again, the reality is, I'm just a human being like everyone else. And just because I am a certain race does not mean that I can do everything that is a part of that culture or even know about it. So anyway, that's just all I have to say today. Just to really pay attention to how much do we compartmentalize people based on certain things like race. So anyway, all right, until tomorrow. See you then. Bye.